Hey guys, this is Brett Young, Taylor Young, and Rod Erb, and you're tuned in to the Be Extraordinary podcast with Erb and Young. Real conversations about business, leadership, and personal development. Welcome back to another episode of the Be Extraordinary podcast, and I am beyond fired up today. This will be one of the best episodes that you listen to, and if you've listened to all of them, I can honestly tell you that do not go anywhere. You are going to hear from one of the most compelling, inspiring people that Rod, Taylor, and myself have had the privilege to work with. The person that you're going to hear from today will more than likely be the most successful entrepreneur that you've heard from, from a long time. He's definitely the most successful person that we've had the opportunity to meet, and one of the most impactful as far as his reach is concerned outside of just the massive business that he has created. His story is compelling. It is one with trials and tribulations. It is one with struggles. He is vulnerable. He shares. He cares. And every time we're with him, it is a goosebump session because his story is just raw and real. So, kind of give his background today, Mr. David Gabrielsen with Capital Premium Finance. I wanted to kind of kick it over to Rod, who I know has a special relationship with David.
Thanks. First of all, good morning, guys. Good morning, David. I am, it's so special, so special to have you on, man. I mean, I echo what Brett said, and I just think to myself, you've invited us into your home. We've sat in your living room. We've been intimate. We've had multiple intimate dinners together. We've had a chance to learn who you are and grow fond of you in a very, very special and neat way. And I think about introducing you from a bio perspective, and I just don't think a bio does it justice. I think it's circa 1983. A guy that is a family man, a guy who's hungry for more, a guy who started out with, I think the story goes you managed some books, you did some bookkeeping for an apartment complex. You worked on the weekends selling shaved ice with your kids and took that very seriously. And then one day in that continuum, your dad taught you how to finance premium. And, you were kind of off to the races. I think it was something that I think you would say kind of hit you in your vein and just fired you up and excited you. And you took off and we will hear the rest of the story. But I just think to myself, when I introduce somebody like you, and I echo what Brett says, man, you are one of the most special people that we've ever had the chance to meet with and certainly become good friends with. But humble beginnings is an understatement. This kid from Boise, Idaho, and kind of where your journey took you, and I'm just excited that you're here. We are honored that you are a guest. We have been just blown away at our partnership. It started as a partnership and it's grown into a friendship. So I think anytime you can pair that, you've cracked a code and you've got an unbelievable opportunity for a lot of things. So, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on. We are humbled that you're here and we're just looking forward to hearing your story. So, welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. I'm just a good old boy from Idaho, started a finance company and I'm really grateful to run into Erb and Young and to be friends with you guys and just, it's awesome.
It's awesome, man. Yeah. Well, I'll to give the listeners kind of some framing is that the person that you're hearing from is the most successful entrepreneur that I know in my entire journey. From a ability to take something from nothing and create something nationwide, a very large company. The amount of respect that I have for what you've done and what you've built is just off the charts. And I know I see a lot of, selfishly, I see a lot of our story in your story. I think all entrepreneurs, anybody that's looking to build something is looking at a story to say, hey, does that look like our journey? And if I can fit inside that vision, what can I learn from that person's walk? What can I learn from that person's challenges, triumphs, achievements? And I look at kind of the way you guys started in Idaho and grassroots, just, going to golf tournaments and doing trade shows and just pounding pavement and knocking on doors and finding agents that say, hey, we'll use you for premium financing, and then go into the surrounding states and building regionally. And then at some point, what I think 20 years later, I think it was close to maybe 16, 17 years later, making the jump to go nationwide. And now it's over 30 years in business, and you guys are one of the premier finance companies in the country. And it's still a family business. You're still heavily involved in running it. And you've got an incredible group of people who understand the origins of where you started and eat, breathe, and sleep the culture. So, man, what I'm selfishly excited today, David, is to kind of unpack that journey specifically and I want to talk about some of the challenges, because when we sat in your living room and we, got a rundown of kind of the good, bad, and the ugly, I was just moved emotionally, almost spiritually, to the fact of the challenges that you've overcome to get to where you are today. And to me, it was there's just a lot of sacrifices that were made. It was not an easy journey. And to me, there's so much courage, bravery, and inspiration that comes from that. And I want to share with the listeners today of kind of maybe some of those things and what those are and what got you through those times. Were there moments where you were looking, at the mirror saying, can we do this? And ultimately, what was the thing that got you through those humps? So, man, take us back a little bit in the beginning of the first policy ever financed, how that started, and kind of what kicked your journey off.
Sure. Great questions, all of them, and they're all tied in together. And, there's always sacrifice. There's always, it's never easy. But to me, it was following my heart. I believe that we're all here for a reason. I believe we came down with special gifts that we all have to share with each other. I didn't, I came from a family of 5, and on my last name being Gabrielsen, I have 20 cousins. And of all the 20 cousins, 19 out of 20 are at least a doctor, lawyers, accountants. I mean, you name it. Wow. They have, the minimum is a bachelor's. Most of them have masters, and then there's David. And I'm that 120th that I just didn't fit in, and I didn't like school. I didn't do well in school. And so my mom and dad were really worried about me, and because they both have a master's degree, or at least a bachelor's. I don't even know what all that stuff means, but really, really educated. And so my dad just kept telling me, growing up, he just said, look, if you're not going to go to college, at least, get into sales and start a company or do something. But he in my path was more of things that would happen to me in my life. And we all have aha moments. That things happen to you and you don't know why they happened to you, but they happened, and then they made no sense at the time. And my first one was when I was 8 years old. My grandpa Gabrielsen gave me a $2 bill, and why did I fall in love with a $2 bill? It was so awesome. I thought, man, that is so cool, and I held on to it, for 20 years, and I put it in my reading material. I knew exactly where it was at all times. Well, it's because the $2 bill was going to be the brand for Capital. Capital's unique to $2 bill. Well, as 8 years old, I didn't have any idea that was going to happen. And then when I was 14, you can drive in Utah or in Idaho because the farm boys had to drive for the potatoes. And so I was driving, and my mom asked me one time to pick her up at her OBGYN, which was across town in Boise. And I thought, oh, that's awesome. It means I can drive, even drive more. And I pulled up in the parking lot. My mom was waving me down, and she got in the car, and she said, David, I got to tell you something. And I looked over at her like, well, what are you going to tell me? I'm in 9th grade, Mom. What's going on? And she just said that guy, meaning her OBGYN, dedicates his life to his job because babies aren't born between 8 and 5. And I thought, well, that's really cool, Mom. I have no clue why you're telling me this. And it just didn't make one sense to me at all. But that just everything started to build. But there were aha moments. And then my dad, when I was 18, kept telling me, David, you got to spend money to make money. And I thought, well, wait a minute, is that like going out with girls and spending $200 on a dinner, and the next night she's out with somebody else, and this just doesn't make sense. And what a ripoff. And but to spend money to make money, and so he took me to a ball game, and he goes, do you see the players? Do you see the stadium? Do you see all this? He said the owner had to pay for the stadium and the players before the first pitch. He had to spend money to make money. So it finally made sense to me, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Spend money to make money. And so all these things started to happening to me when I was in school. I just liked high school. I liked to do accounting. It was just bookkeeping. I couldn't get enough of it. I just absorbed it. And so I knew how to do bookkeeping and typing. I could type better than the teacher, and I taught myself 10 key and just stuff like this. And like, what is going on with me? And then it came time to go to college, and I never registered. I never took the ACT. I never did. So my friends went to Rick's College, a small college in eastern Idaho. So I decided I'd just show up. So I showed up, and if you had a heartbeat and you were Mormon, you got in. So I had both, and they let me in. And I took tough classes like tennis and took an English class. I remember that. But so in this tennis class, I saw this really good-looking girl there, and I was trying to impress her. I was a high school, player of the year in tennis, and they gave it to the senior guy, and I was the only senior guy on the team, so I got it. But I didn't want her to know that. So anyway, her name was Lorianne, and she was a tennis player. But that's how I got to meet her, and I liked her a lot. She didn't like me, but I went to college to meet my wife, and I ended up marrying her. And but I only went to college for a quarter, and then I failed all my classes. My English teacher I had asked me to come in after the class and talk to me, and I went in. He said, David, I've dumbed the class down as much as I can. You just don't get it. I said, great, I get it. I don't get it. My mom taught English for 35 years, so at junior high, so you can see that I just didn't obtain things. But anyway, I met my wife, and then I did a few things, but from the time I was 21 or 20, I went on a mission for our church for a couple of years, and then I came home, and then I went to BYU for a quarter because I got in at Rick's. They let me in at BYU, and then I met my wife there. I knew we never talked for 2 years, but it was meant to be that I met her because her dad was an entrepreneur. And eventually we got married, but from 22 to 27, I did I learned what I didn't like. I didn't like working for people, and I wasn't happy. And so I had moved from Salt Lake. I was living there, and I moved up to Seattle. I got transferred with this company, and then they just paid me as little as they could. And I found out that my boss that was working for me made $40,000 a year. And my wife promised, or I had to promise my wife when I met her or married that we'd have 10 children, and I'd have to give her a beach house in Newport Beach. So I had massive obligations, you can imagine.
I love it.
Massive obligations.
And I said, well,
yeah, that's
I came from a Mormon background, so that was normal. And my dad's side, my mom's side was Catholic, so let's go. 10 kids, that's okay. So anyway, we got married, but then I moved back from Seattle and moved back to Boise. And my dad, in 1983, showed me how to finance premiums. And I had saved up $40,000 from my sale of my home in Seattle. And when my dad showed me how to finance premiums, lights out. It was like the aha moment of my life. The heavens opened, the moon dust was there, everything. And I thought, I can do this. And I learned how to leverage. And I went to the bank and got a $75,000 line of credit by mistake. The bank, back in those days, if you just knew somebody, you got it. And I knew somebody, and I got it. Wow. So once you get a credit facility, and so I had $75,000, went to my first agent. I said, can I finance your premiums? And they looked at me, and I think they felt sorry for me because they had all these kids. And I said, okay, yeah, let's go. Let's do it. We'll give you a shot. So, but they happened to be the second largest agency in Idaho.
Oh, wow.
And, I had $115,000 to put out, and I was big time. I had no clue what I was doing, but I knew how to leverage. I knew that I can borrow the money from the bank at one rate and put it out at another. I just had to learn how to finance premiums and what the collateral was. And so I went and called them and on them, and they said, yeah, we'll do that. And so in September 28th of 1983, I started my company. It was a time called Spectrum Mortgage and Finance, and I had another agency I went to and got my first contract. It was round. You pull fence from another agent. Now I had 3 agencies, and I hand my check to the agency, and they couldn't get it out of my hands because I was so nervous about, man, what am I doing? And but you're right, I was selling shake ice on the weekends. I was keeping books for things. I was doing everything I could to survive. I did a dairy job from 1 to 7 in the morning, but I knew that I was going to do capital, and I knew that I wanted to do it eventually called capital. But no one's going to stop me but me, and I knew I could do it. I knew I could leverage. I had a lot of kids, and I had to show up with the money. I was the daycare, and there was no IOUs. And you'll have to stop me because I can talk forever because I love what I do.
Keep going.
I love it. I was gonna stop because I want to give some context, Dave. So, you said 1 to 7 a.m. is the dairy job was 1 to 7 a.m.
Yeah. So I was doing dairy from 1 to 7, and then I would come home and sleep for a couple hours, and then I'd get up at 10 and I had capital. Let's call it capital, and I did that from like 10 to 3, and then 4, and then I was calling on different agencies. I did my own bookkeeping. See, I did the bookkeeping because I learned it in high school, but I learned debits and credits, and I was really good at it.
Wow.
And everything I learned in high school, the 10 key, I could 10 key better than anybody. I could type better than anybody. Yeah, everything, and I'll use the word Heavenly Father because nobody can sue me, but your guest can. But he guided me through all that stuff. All that stuff was there, and the stuff that I learned. And then I have an entrepreneurial wife where Lorianne knew that I wasn't an 8 to 5 guy. I'm done. There's no way. And she understood when things had to be done. And I got to show up with the money. And I was making $10,000 a weekend shaving ice, and wow. I was doing the work and doing the dairy job, and I was doing anything I could to survive and to keep the money to grow because I wanted to do capital, and that's my eventual goal. So over time, I was able to get rid of some of these jobs, and then obviously I ran out of money because $115,000 doesn't go a long ways. And my brother, who has a double master's at BYU and, making $1 million a year for several years and a big executive for Exxon, I called him up and said, hey, Joe, I'm running out of money. I got this great thing going, and how would you like to, he gave me $1 million. Oh,
wow.
And I was paying him 13% interest on it. And that was fine because prime was 20, prime when I started was at 20%. Right now it's at 8 or 9 or whatever it is, but it was just, my lowest rate was 28%.
Wow. That's perspective.
So I was making, I was making 28% on my 40,000, and then the difference between what I was paying my brother in the bank. And then I did that. Then my brother called me one night and said, Joe, or David, I'm quitting my job. I don't want to live overseas anymore. I'm being transferred to New York, and I don't want to live in New York and raise a family there. And so he said, I'll quit my job and come work for you. So, here comes double masters to somebody who has no education. And he did. He moved. He called me up, and then he showed up. And so now we took that $1 million to the bank, and the bank gave us $10 million. Wow. And so now we can go out and expand. We can do more. And so now we had to learn the hard way. So with insurance comes fraud, and you talk about challenges. You have to learn the hard way. And this big agency in Idaho knew that I was inexperienced, and I don't know how many agencies we had at the time, but a lot. And he knew that I was stupid and young and all that good stuff, and he frauded me for about $400,000.
Wow!
And he just did his contracts. He made fake contracts. He double contract. He was the second largest agency, best reputation. So that hurt, and we caught him, and he admitted it, and so I learned from it. Wow. And so I lost everything I had at the time. I just built a brand new home. Jeez. And I had to move out, and I had lost my $40,000. I had borrowed $160 from my sister, and to pledge money to the bank. And so I lost 200. My brother lost 200. And there were times where I would sit in bed and put the sheets over my head because I didn't want to get out of bed because it wasn't fair. It wasn't right. And so my wife sat there and looked at me and said, you have two choices. You can either sit here and feel sorry for yourself, or you can get your butt out, using other words, and get out there and learn from your mistakes and go. And I recommend that you do it. And so if you know Lorianne, she's a fighter. She's a fighter. That's all I can tell you. She doesn't put, losing is not an option. Mm. So I got out of bed and I went back to work and we recapitalized. My brother put in another 200,000. I borrowed 200 from him. And we recapitalized. The bank, Key Bank, loved us because nobody lost any money, except for our family. And we started again. And the agencies all supported us because nobody lost anything and they understood the circumstance. But I had to learn how to finance premiums, and it took me.
You took the loss, though. Obviously, that was intentional.
My family.
You made sure that they didn't have the loss. You took it on yourself. Where you probably could have said, "Hey, guys, sorry, this bad thing happened," but you obviously must have known, like, okay, well, in order to redo this thing again, I'm going to have to make sure I keep these relationships really tight, and I'm going to have to take this one on the chin, even though it's not fair.
Yep, it wasn't fair, but the thing was, I learned. And so you learn from your mistakes and you become better because of them. And entrepreneurship and failure go right together. And don't think that it's not. One does not go without the other. They're companions. And you learn from your mistakes. It's just how bad you want to get up. And I just felt awful. How unfair was this? And but it took me a long time to pay back myself and pay back my sister and all that. And then I sat there few years later, when I had to start all over, making $1,000 a month, and from capital, and the agency stayed with us, the lines of credit stayed with us, and I had to live by faith. And eventually I was able to write my sister out a check for the money I lost from her, and I cried when I handed it to her. I said, "Thank you. Thank you for being patient with me and trusting me." And my brother put in 200,000 to recapitalize, and the bank said, "Keep going, you guys. You got a good thing going." And I was able to pay my brother back, and just things started going. We had at that point hundreds and hundreds of agencies, and our lines of credit kept.
Were you still in Idaho, or had you expanded past Idaho?
Yeah, so in 1983, we had all the business in Idaho. Excuse me, we started in 83. My brother came in 85. And in 1988, after we got all the legal stuff, and we changed the name to Capital because of that, we moved down to Utah because there's more people in Salt Lake County than there is in the whole state of Idaho. And so I moved my 6 kids and family down there with nothing. And the agencies in Idaho stayed with us. My brother stayed in Idaho. Our bank lines stayed with us. And now we had, the opportunity to go there. But that was a manifestation that I needed to live there. And Heavenly Father he knew I wouldn't leave Idaho because I loved Idaho. That's where I grew up. And he knew I wouldn't leave unless I lost everything. So I did. So now it was time to move. But I had all and I had to live in Idaho. I had to live in Utah, because that was the biggest airport. And it was because of what was going to happen in the future that I had to live there. And so when we moved there, we started basically all over, and we started, no agencies in Utah, but the Idaho agencies kept us, and we started to grow. We started to finance premiums the right way. I learned, I had to learn how to finance premiums, just like, the NBA players, very few can just step right into the NBA. They had to learn how to play the NBA game. And like us all, you can't cut corners, you can't cheat. If you're a runner, you cannot cheat wind, and you cannot cheat business. You have to learn it. And it's hard, it's painful, it'll kick your butt, and you keep going, because that's what you're supposed to do. And I was not going to fail. That was not an option. And Heavenly Father said to me, "You have two choices. You can either stay in bed and feel sorry for yourself," which is understandable, or you can get up and you can learn from your mistakes and you can keep going. And so that's what I chose. And so we moved to Utah, and I don't know how many hundreds of agencies we had. And our credit facility started to grow to 10 million, to 20 million, to 30 million, because I have to have money to lend out. And within, we moved in 88. By the year 2000, we had probably 90% of the business in Utah, wow. most all of it in Idaho as well. And
90% of the business being financed, you're saying? So
in financing in Utah, just from the agencies, we had probably 90 to 95% of the agencies in Utah.
So you owned the market, basically. You went from nothing to owning the market.
Yes. And we had.
I think about that statement, right? It's like, and I've heard that before, and I remember that from one of our conversations. How did you get to own 95% of that market share? And I don't want to interrupt you because you're on a roll, but I wanted to maybe see if you could add in how you got to all those agencies. Yeah. What was your schedule, and what type of pace did you keep?
Yeah, that doesn't just happen.
It doesn't just happen. And
no.
To the listener, you're about to be blown away, because I remember being blown away, and I'm asking this question already knowing the answer, about to be blown away again. Like what did a day look like? What did a week look like? What did a month look like? And how did you possibly get to all those people?
Well, it's really good questions, because it's step by step. When my wife would nurse the kids at night, she would hand the babies to me, and I would burp them. And I'd be sitting in the rocking chair praying to God, how am I going to pay for all these kids? And it was hard, but the Spirit kept saying, keep going, David, just keep going. Keep going, David, keep going. And I wanted to know the answers, what, but he said, keep going. So I just kept going. And so I would get up, I would call on agencies. It sounds stupid. I would pray every time I left the house that I would find the agencies. And, my brother answered the phones, and then I was calling on the agencies. So I would get up, I would just call on agencies. I would go to every golf social I could go to, standing at the hole, handing out $2 bills. Capital's unique as a $2 bill. I would go to every trade show I could go to, every luncheon I could go to, because people, it's a relationship business, and they want to know you, and they want to know that you're going to be there. And it's not just going to the first convention. You got to go to the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth, and you keep going. You answer the phone. You give the best service. You care. You do everything you can. And people will, it's like dancing with Miss America. I want to dance with Miss America. I want to finance premiums. And if Mr. America's in my way, I got to do the same. I got to do more than what Mr. America's doing, because I can't walk into her and go, "Hey, I can do the same thing." And well, why would she switch? So you got to be extraordinary, just like you guys. Your names. So why would they choose you? Because you got to be different. We got to want it more, and you got to win, and you own it. And I got to show up with the money, and I love what I do, and we can give you the best service. And so you build relationships. You go the extra mile, you go extraordinarily, like you guys say, you stand out, you do things that other people aren't going to do because you want it. And failure is not an option, but it's there. It's always looking at you. It's the first thing you look at when you wake up in the morning. Hello.
In this digital age, I think about what you just said. In this digital age, we connect with people over Zoom like this. You're coming to us live this morning from Utah. We're in Orlando, Florida, but when you say you called on them, for context, you got in your car, you drove, or you got on an airplane on a Monday morning, and you came back on Friday. There was a period of time when you were gone 5 days a week, left in the morning on Monday, got back on Friday night. But you physically, I want this frame of reference. I think it's important. You physically beat on to gain 95% of that market share in Utah. You knocked on all of those doors with your hand and face to face. There was no leverage. There was no, let me do one thing and mirror this 100 different times. You literally had to make those calls. Astonishing to me.
Yeah. You have to see the white in their eyes, and they have to see it the white in your eyes, and they have to know that you care. And if you have passion, they'll feel it. They know that you care, and you can do that. And so that's what I did. And we started to grow, and our company grew, and then it was 2005, 2003. And my brother came to me and said, David, I don't want to do this anymore. We have to personally guarantee everything we own and do everything. to the banks and I want out and I want you to give me 10 million for my half the company. And I'm like, crap, I don't know how to do that. I didn't go to college. I don't know how to buy my brother out. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And so I went to my brother-in-law, who's Lorianne's brother, who was an investment banker and a private equity guy. And I went to him. I said, Scott, I don't know how to buy out my brother. He said, David, I've waited 25 years for you to come and knock on my door. I want to be your partner. I know how to buy your brother out. And so can you see why I had to marry the Crowley family? Because they're entrepreneurs. And so so I negotiated with my brother and he accepted $7 million. And so now, remember, I had to spend money to make money. I just didn't think I was going to spend $7 million. You know, $250 for a date with a girl is looking really good at that point. But at any rate, so I borrowed the money for $7 million. I bought out my brother. Our credit facility was at $35 million. And we switched from different banks to another really large bank, and they promised me up to $50 million. And so that was 2000. And so when I went to the attorney's office to buy my brother out, and there's all his attorneys in there and mine, and they said, it's time to sign, David. And I stood up and started to cry. And I looked at my wife and I said, I may never be home. I have all the business in Idaho. We have it all in Utah. Still crying. I'm never going to be home. She looked at me and she said, go for it, David, go for it. So from 2005 to 2017, which is 12 years, I paid a massive price by leaving on a Monday and coming home on a Friday. I didn't do it every week, but it felt like it. But it was at least 3 out of 4. And I went to agencies in all 50 states, and I knocked on their doors, and I did everything I could. And our company grew. And in 2009, we went nationwide. We were in all 50 states. Our credit facilities were growing. Obviously, it's my umbilical cord. And, my lines of credit went from 125 million to 250 million to 500 million. Today, it's at 2 billion.
Jeez.
You could cry about it.
Wow. And, I could cry about it. I feel the emotion.
Yeah. Yeah. And 4,000 agencies, 180 employees. Yeah. And you're just grateful. You're grateful because employees, you're as good as your employees. I'm grateful for the employees because I need help. I have a lot of work to do. And so for 12 years, I paid that massive price, and the right people, my dad kept telling me the right people would show up at the right time. So my brother-in-law showed up, Scott, and then our chief executive officer, who's now our president, showed up. He was looking for a job, and he's brilliant in operations, and he's been with us for 20 years now. And, we just kept growing. We kept growing. We went to every state convention we could go to, every golf social. And then in 2017, roughly right around in there, I hit the wall. And it was tough. I was tired. And so I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not traveling. I can't do it. And I had severe celiac disease, which is in my family. And I said, I'm done traveling. And so what does that mean? And so I bought a property down in southern Utah, and I had a friend that was unemployed and I wanted to help him. So I bought some property and I built the property, and it was really nice. And came time to sell it, and I couldn't sell it. I couldn't do it. Because when I grew up, things were tough, and my mom and dad didn't have a lot of money. Our refrigerator broke, and I could hear my mom crying in her bedroom with dad saying, what are we going to do? What are we going to do, Ron? And we didn't go on family vacations. So my dad's boss, recognized our family struggle and said, would you please take your family to Sun Valley, which is 3 hours east of Boise, and I have a cabin there. Would you please take your family and stay there for free for 10 days in the summer? So for 20 years or plus, we went as a family to Sun Valley, and I absolutely loved it. And I cried every time I left because I had so much fun. So another aha moment. So when I bought this property down in Alton and I couldn't sell it, it was my Sun Valley, and it was my turn to share with what I've received from God. And bought that property and I started to invite agencies to come to Utah. So I bought 2 properties, I bought 3, I bought 4, I bought 5, I bought 6, I bought 7, I bought 10, all vacation properties, because somebody did it for me. And so that is what I do, is I invite people to come to stay for free in these vacation properties for free.
Amazing.
Yes, I'm selfish. I enjoy people. I like to get to know their families. Most of them are agencies, but I can do that, and I get to do what I like to do, and that's to meet great people all over the United States.
Oh, that's cool.
So we started another company called Experience Utah, where we invited people, and I needed help to book these properties, which I do. We go golf socials all over the United States. Heavenly Father made arrangements with Garden Camp, who I met on a mission in 1975, was a golf pro. And I met him I came home off of a mission. I moved to Utah. We never had any communication. I never shopped. I went to Albertsons for shopping for whatever reasons, and I ran into Garden Camp in one of the aisles. I'm like, what the heck are you doing? I don't swear. I have to go talk to the bishop. But anyway, I said, what the, he said, what the hell? I said, heck, he said, heck. Then, but I said, Garn, I said, do you still give golf lessons? And he said, yeah, I do. I was going to go on the PGA Tour, but I chose a family. I said, how would you like to give golf lessons to agencies all over the United States? And David, I would love to do that, but what do you do for a living? And, finance premiums, and so you have to learn that. So, see, that was another thing that was an aha moment. And so now Garn made me travel all over the U.S. We give out golf lessons. We go to golf socials. We do all that, because that's when you get agencies outside of the office, that's where you build relationships. And so that was another, aha moment that helped me. So now he does that with me. And since 2017, we've been traveling and doing golf socials, and we go to, still go to state conventions. And then we invite people to come in to go to Utah to go skiing with them and get to know their families. And so it was a way for the agencies to come to Utah instead of me having to go out there all the time. Heavenly Father knew I wouldn't stop unless he gave me celiac disease, because I loved what I did, and I wanted to win, and I wanted to provide. And Capital was created to provide for families and to take care of these kids and to do it in a good way. And we're not perfect. We do our best, but at the end of the day, you're here to provide and take care of your families. And so I've always felt that way. I want to win. I want to win so bad, but I want to win in the white lines of the game. I do not want to cheat. I don't want to lie. I don't want to do anything but give great service, and I want to win. And sometimes in competition, you just tip your hat because you got your butt kicked. Good for them. You did better than I. Congratulations. But I'll be back. And, I respect my competition. I never say anything bad about them. I know I can beat them. I want to beat them, and I wish them well. And I want as much business as I can get. And that's what I've done now I just had my 40th year.
That's amazing.
I love the finance premiums, and we have our president now, and I try to go to my properties when I can. I love to come and go skiing, and when the agencies come, and I like to go to a few conventions.
I can attest to that, because I know I went out and skied with you guys in Park City, and that first day, I think I wanted to throw my skis down the slope. I was so frustrated. And the second day, we got the opportunity to go up with you and some of your family and friends. And David spent the entire morning with me skiing the bunny slopes. Everybody's racing down, and obviously he's an avid skier. He stayed with me and taught me how to ski, man, and he loved it. And I never felt like I was holding you up. You genuinely wanted to have me get it. I could tell you were having fun by me getting it. And it was one of those unique moments where you get to see someone's true character, that, man, they just genuinely love to help people. And I know for me, it's one of those moments where I took back and I said, man, how can I do that for somebody else? So it made a huge impact on me.
Yeah.
And we had a great time because, no one got hit by skis getting thrown out from the top of the mountain by me the third day. But I got it, and it was direct result from you helping me, man. It was amazing.
You did. And I remember that day. And I remember the moment when you got it. And it was glorious. And it was fun. And, it's just a little bit of a tweak. But we are all here to help each other. And we all have talents and gifts that we can share. And when we share our talents with each other, we have a fuller deck. You have cards that I don't have, and vice versa. And when we share those, we make each other's lives better, because that's what we're here for. And when you learned how to ski, that I was just as excited as you were. And then we can keep up with Rod and, Sharon. I think it's Sharon. Is that right, Rod? Your wife?
Oh, Susan. Yeah.
Susan. Okay, I was close. I was starting with this S.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, but Susan was there, and it was fun, and then we could all hang out together in GC and Garn, and and then we could go have some lunch, and it was just fun.
That's awesome. You remember our wives' names. That's a clue right there. That's pretty amazing. Well, I love that.
Yeah, Susan's
1 + 1.
Susan's from Canada. Yeah,
there you go.
Guys go hunting.
That's right. That's right.
You get to know each other, and you have fun together, and you care for each other. Well, who would I want to give my insurance to? I'd want to give them to people that care, just like you guys do. When you care more, why are they going to choose Urban Young? Because you care more. Because you care about them and their families, and you want them to succeed as bad as you want to succeed. And they're going to give you your insurance when you do that. Well, it's the same thing with premium financing. If you care more, and let's face it, when we date our wives, it's all about bribery. It's all about campaigning. Why are they going to switch me? Why are they going to choose me over them, and vice versa? And get that exchange the rings. It's because you got to care more than anybody else, and you've got to show them what they need and comfort them. And it's the same thing with agencies, insurers, and everybody else. You got to care more. And when you own your own company, you're going to care more. I promise you that. And you're going to try harder. And I've had things in my life happen to me that in 2014 I was exhausted. I told my children I would buy them wave runners and take them to Lake Powell, which is down by my homes in southern Utah, and we did that, and we had a great day water skiing, or not water skiing, but wave running, and they wanted to have one more run, so I went to get the boat and not the boat, but the truck, and back it into the water, and nobody came back. They kept coming back. I said, "What's going on? What's wrong?" And then all of a sudden, my son comes over in the wave runner, breaking all the rules of the buoys and going way fast, and just jumped off the wave runner. Said, "Mom's been hit by a boat, and she's hurt really bad, and so is Moki." And I thought, "Oh God, please no." So I jumped out on the wave runner. I ran out there, and my wife was hit by a boat, and she was, luckily there was nurses on another boat that heard it, and the boat smashed into the wave runner she was on. She was stopped, and the boat didn't see her, and it hit her. Just did everything that killed her. It broke her legs, her ribs. It crushed her head, and the propeller cut her head open.
Oh, God.
And she's just laying there, and Moki was under the wave runner, hurt, and Troy, my son, was there. It grabbed her, put her on a boat. I got out there as quick as I could, and we got her off to the shore. And there was luckily 2 life flights close by. They took Lorianne and flew her in there. I was able to get on one of the helicopters and the life flight with Moki and get there. And Lorianne was in another helicopter life flight, and it should have been dead. She had 30 minutes to live before she bled to death. When she got there, she was in intensive care for 15 days. She was in the hospital for 30. Never should have lived. Nothing. And my bill was $2 million. My bill was $2 million. You don't think I need insurance? And you don't think I cared about my insurance agent? Who did I call? And did he care? Yes, he cared. I'm stuck. I'm sitting here in a hospital with my wife in intensive care. What do I do? So nobody likes insurance until they need it. I could have wrote a check out for $2 million, but it would have hurt. but my insurance paid for everything because I had an insurance agent that cared about me. Did I care about? I've never asked him what the premium was. I just want you to care about me and my family and help me. I will pay the premiums, protect me, because I don't even know what I need. And so it took me a long time, and I had $2 million bill. I got it. Everything was paid for through my insurance. And I'm just grateful for insurance agencies.
God,
I'm grateful for the people that care and protect people like me. It's like going to a doctor. I'll tell you one time, I'll expose myself one time. I'll tell you about capital. I'll tell you about the companies I own, everything else. But I'm going to trust everything I have with you, that you will protect me and my family. And I'm grateful for the insurance agencies that do that. You guys carry a big weight on you. You have a lot of responsibility because people like me look to you for help, and they do a great job. And I know that's not anything to do with finance and premiums, but
it does, because one of the questions I had for you, which is funny, that's why I just obviously let you rip, because one of the questions I had for you is back to Rod's. You know, number one is just grit. Like, your work ethic is just the best I've ever seen. I mean, it's hard to fathom, right? Number two, I was going to ask you what you feel like your superpower was and still is to convert agencies that are using somebody else to work with you. And obviously it's been over a very long career, but for the size and scale that you are, it's relatively quickly. And what I hear is you just care more, you know. It just sounds like to me that the fact that people know that you care more than the other person, that is your marketing. That is what your value prop is. And there's a lot of probably things that encompass that, but do you agree with that? I mean, that's what you just kind of nailed on, which is what I was going to ask you.
Well, so the owner of the agency shows up. It's a lot more powerful than one of the representatives. And when I show up, I'm the chairman, CEO, and founder. I care. I'm going to be there. Now, I can't be everywhere, and I acknowledge that. But, you know, I try my best. But, yeah, you care more because you own it, and you're going to have to. I always remember Miss America. I've got to do more than IPFS. I've got to do more than my competition. And I study my competition. I know what they do. And I'm not going to let them beat me. And I just need to close my blinds there. But, yeah, I got to have the best, the latest, the greatest. You got to have your feet on the ground, boots on the ground. And you got to care more. And caring more is doing the right thing every day, a lot of prayer, encouraging your employees, praising your employees, being grateful for your employees, because they're the ones that represent you, and they'll model you, they'll reflect you. But there's no easy formula. There's no magic formula. It's not like Las Vegas, go down, pull a lever, and you won. That's never. It's every day, hard work, and you pray a lot, and you live by the Spirit. And then you have to be smart enough to go home and take care of your family and have that balance, because there is no other success in this life than failure. If you have failure in the home, there's no other success you can have. And so their great leader said there's no other success can compensate for failure in the home. And so I try to be a good dad. I try to be a good husband, and blend all those in.
David,
it's not easy.
This is moving me emotionally, and for reasons that you've mentioned throughout your journey. You've mentioned with no apologies, your beliefs and the Heavenly Father, and the guiding that is, as you tell this story, is just amazing to watch. So one, thank you for being open about that and sharing that in the way that you have. But then also I wanted you to speak to, the terminology active faith. How does that terminology hit you? Because when I hear your story, I hear this man that has a tremendous belief in something greater than this world and himself. And I also see this man who has this tenacity and this drive and this work ethic to use the gifts that have been given to him along the way. And those two things together seemingly are the capital story, right? It's not one or the other. It's certainly not blind faith, but there's a level of active faith that seems very relevant to me. So I'd love for you to speak to that, because that's hitting me right now. I just can't help but think that your story is the epitome of active faith.
Yeah, and I'm not, I'm just a good old boy from Idaho. I tell people, and I believe that before I came to this life, that God was up at the pulpit and said, I need somebody to finance premiums. I need somebody to bless my children on earth. And I need somebody that's willing to start a company. And he's looking in the congregation. Well, I was hiding in one of the rooms in the building, in the closet, hoping he wouldn't call on me. And then he said, I'm looking for this Gabrielsen guy, and asked me, would you start a company? And would you bless people with it and help God's children? I said, yes, I will, but I need help, and I need guidance from you, and I need people to come into my life. My dad always said the right people would show up at the right time. My wife showed up, and her family, and the people that have helped me. I believe that Heavenly Father helps us and blesses us. He likes IPFS and other people just as much as capital and everything else. But I believe that we share our wealth. I believe we share our talents with each other, to guide each other, to help each other, give them hope. My job is to employ people and give them hope. And my job is to provide for families, and my own family, and the 160 employees at Capital and the chocolate factory and everywhere else I have. I've been guided. I'm just an instrument in that hand. I do the best I can. I'm not perfect. My dad, I spoke at his funeral 11 years ago, and I got up and said, I'm grateful for my dad, because he was an imperfect person, and he told me so, because I am imperfect as well, but I do try. And that's what I think all of us have to do, is try our best. No matter what we do, no matter how many kids, how many employees we have, that we pray to God for help. And I believe that he will give us that help during our discouraging times, because we will have them. And he whispers and says, keep going, Dave, keep going. And so I'm going to keep going until I don't. And I'm going to do the best I know how. And our calling as entrepreneurs, we need that guidance, because people depend on us, and we're no better than anybody else. We depend on our employees, they depend on us, and we help each other, and we go to our kids' games. I have the same problems as everybody else. I have a son in prison. It's painful. It hurts. But I have to learn how to be unconditionally loved and to love them. I have children with drug addiction, just like everybody else does. I have kids on missions for our church, and I've been able to adopt children and write checks out to adoption agencies because of Capital, and I'm grateful for that. They have blessed my life. I have won the lottery, not them. It's an amazing journey, and we are here to share our wealth with each other and to bless everyone's life that we can, because God's children need money.
Well, I know, man. I don't know.
There's so many things that I want to know, and even things that I already have heard.
It's amazing.
I just circling back and here. I mean, I've heard your story a couple of different times. Yeah. Every single time you say it, it's as genuine. It is as authentic. I watch you feel it. I feel it. To Taylor's point,
I learn something every time.
And 100% learn something every time. But I think about one thing that you said. I didn't mean to cut you off there. Is you make tough decisions, and you want to do right by people, and you want to stay within the white lines, as you put it. I've talked to you intimately, one-on-one, about a lot of tough decisions back in those times, even when it hurt. Right? It's like when the less painful route might have blurred a line. You've made a career, you've built a company, you've built a life, you've built a name, you've built a legacy on even doing the right thing when it hurts. And there's a lot of hurt in this world, right? And I think you'd be the first one to say that, man, there's a lot of people that hurt more than me, or have been through more than me, and it's one of the things I respect about you. but you've had a lot of things happen in your career, in your life, in your family, and even despite it all, continuing to make the correct decision is something that I've just always admired and respected about you. And I hear that story that you just shared about Lorianne, and
yeah, your belief, man, David, is infectious. I don't know if I've met anybody who has a bigger belief than you. And I know for anybody that's listening to this, and I wanted to close with a question, but I did want to make sure I said I think what makes a great entrepreneur is belief. And people sign up and want to follow belief. Team members come along because they believe in the person's belief, and they believe that because they have bigger belief than I have, my life can be better because I'm going to follow this guy or gal who's got this huge belief. And I don't care what widget you're selling, or if you're doing premium financing or selling insurance. I think clients sign up with people that have big belief. And the two things that stand out to me, well, there's a couple things that stand out to me, is number one, your belief is just bigger than everybody else's. And it's genuine. Number two, your work ethic and grit backs up that belief, right? To tailor to your point, right? If you have a big belief, well, then you're going to put the work in. If you fake a big belief, you don't put the work in because you don't think it's possible. You don't think you're doing something bigger than yourself. You don't think it's important, right? You just say it. It's the difference between somebody who eats, breathes, and sleeps it. You can tell that they actually believe it. And then, that last part for me is just passion. You just love what you do. You really love it. And it's not just loving the premium finance, which you do. You love all the aspects of what this instrument has allowed you to do. And that to me is something that I will take away from this conversation. And I hope somebody else is listening where it sparks it. And that's kind of where I wanted to kind of close here and ask you one last question before we wrap up is, for those that are listening to this and they're stuck or they're static and they're feeling the way that you have felt throughout that journey multiple times. And, maybe the status quo answer is you just keep going. You just keep going, But if you were to get into the crevices, into the nooks and crannies of whatever your answer is, like what is it that if you were in a room with just them one-on-one, no camera, no audio, no nothing, if you could take all of your experience over the last 40 years and look into their soul and give them some sort of guidance and advice that would make an impact, what would that be for them?
Well, that's a really good question. And the candid answer would be keep going. And I agree with that too. But the other thing I would say is Heavenly Father has put you on this earth for a reason. And for whatever reason you have this passion to be an entrepreneur, then it's a calling. There's only a few of us that can do it. He's asked you to do it. He will show you the way. You just need to listen and you need to try your best. And let's talk about that together. I'm here to help you. Let's talk about it. What are you feeling right now? What is your soul telling you? What is your passion telling you? Because you have it for a reason. And until you satisfy that passion, it will stick with you. It's going to come at you and it will not let you go. Because that is what he wants you to do. There's a reason why. So keep going, keep feeling that spirit, be open to the universe, be open to podcasts like Be Extraordinary, be open to good books. You will be followed, you will be led if you'll just listen. Because remember, he's got his armor around you. He loves you. He loves all of us. And he wants us to succeed. And we want to succeed. But we have to learn. It's not easy. It's hard. It's really hard. But never give up. You keep going. You follow your passion. And there are people there that care for you and love you. And they will help you.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's cool, man. I feel that, like that intuition and that feeling inside to be more in touch with that, right? Get it. I hear get out of your head and get out of all the stuff that's noisy, and really, what is your gut telling you? What is that inside intuition and spirit telling you? And there's a reason for that. And that comes back to just your belief and the way you have been guided and continue to guide yourself and inspire us and inspire anybody that you speak to. So, man, David, let me just
say one more thing just before I go. You're going to be taken to the brink of everything you feel. And when I decided to make friends with God, and that I knew that he was there to help me, all entrepreneurs will be opened and woken in the middle of the night, and they'll talk to you, and his spirit will guide you. I'm no more perfect than anybody else on this earth. I'm probably the least qualified to hear his voice, but I am woken many times, and the spirit talks to me to help me run this company and gives me that hope of keep going. And that's another thing that I would say is you keep going and follow that spirit, and everybody qualifies for it.
Everybody qualifies for it. I love that. God, that's so good, man. David, thank you so much. We're going to have to do a follow-up because as long as you're willing to get on a call, the answer will always be when and where for us. So for everybody here at Urban Young, I do want to say thank you for everything that you've done for us and continue to do for us. From the three of us, I will say thank you for inspiring us as leaders, entrepreneurs, as men. And for anybody that's listening to this, I want to thank on their behalf that you would spend your time. I know you're extremely busy and have a ton of people that ask you for things, that you would get on this and just pour your soul and to be able to help somebody else on their journey. So with that, man.
Well, I just want to say thank you for being creative, and thank you for your courage to do what you do, because you bless lives and you inspire me and you give me hope. And you make me a better person. And because of the love that you've shown me and my family and my company, I'm very, very grateful.
Thanks, man.
I want you to come to Utah, and I won't come back on your podcast until you do.
I love that. Recording is all about bribery, so there you go.
That's right.
It's all about bribery.
There you go. Well, gang.
I love you guys.
Love you too, man. Well, guys, if you enjoyed the podcast today, please share that with every person you know. God, that's so good, man. And remember, life is not ordinary. It's meant to be extraordinary.